Most people think you need a heated greenhouse or a commercial energy grid to pull food out of freezing winter soil. They're wrong. And starting your winter strategy with delicate, short-lived annual greens actually suppresses your garden's cold weather resilience before you've even begun. The modern gardening industry has spent decades keeping you trapped in a loop. Buy the seed packets in April, fight the soil all summer, watch the frost wipe it out in November, run back to the supermarket when the logistics lines buckle. It's a retail trance. Ancient farmers knew something different. They cultivated permanent, deep-rooted food systems that don't care about a hard frost. By the end of this video, you will know 7 specific perennial crops that thrive when the topsoil freezes solid, and the exact metabolic mechanism that makes them sweeter the colder it gets. Look, I have a take on this. I'll be honest about what it is. Winter isn't the death of the garden, it's the audit. It's the seasonal reality check that reveals whether you are cultivating a living ecosystem or managing a dependency on retail inputs. Let that sit for a second. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Sustainable Agriculture found that permanent perennial root networks retain 45% more subsurface soil moisture during winter freezes than conventional tilled plots. They don't need your help. They don't need your blankets, your artificial heat, or your permission. They need you to plant them once, and then mostly leave them alone. Before we get into the 7 plants, I need you to understand one thing, because it changes how you think about everything that follows. Perennials are not just plants that come back. They are plants with deep, established root systems that have spent years building a relationship with the soil food web beneath them. Bacteria, fungi, earthworms, the organisms that make nutrients available to your crops, they colonize around perennial roots and stay there. The soil beneath a 3-year-old perennial bed is genuinely alive in a way that a freshly tilled annual bed simply is not. Modern analogy: a city with functioning infrastructure versus an empty lot. You can plant a building on the lot, but the city already has roads, utilities, and communication networks running without anyone managing them daily. The reason this matters for winter harvests is that perennials are drawing on that underground infrastructure when everything else has shut down. They are not fighting to establish themselves, they are already home. That is why zero effort is not a figure of speech here. It is what happens when a plant is in its correct relationship with the ground beneath it. Plant 1. Jerusalem artichoke. Most growers believe that a productive winter carbohydrate source requires rows of fragile, labor-intensive root crops. They're wrong. The Jerusalem artichoke, completely unrelated to Jerusalem, structurally a sunflower, is the ultimate anti-industry crop. The commercial supply chain hates it because it doesn't store well in plastic bags on supermarket shelves. It rots within days of being cleaned and exposed to warm air. But inside the freezing winter earth, it is functionally immortal. The mechanism behind this survival is elegant. While annual crops pump their cells with simple sugars that freeze and rupture under a hard frost, this perennial stores its energy as inulin, a complex prebiotic carbohydrate that acts as a natural biological antifreeze inside the tuber. When you dig them out of the snow in January, the flavor has shifted. The cold activates an enzymatic conversion, turning dense starch into a crisp, nutty sweetness that tastes like a cross between a water chestnut and an artichoke heart. You plant this once, just once, and for the next 20 years, your only job is to show up with a spade when the ground is white. Plant 2. Turkish Rocket. Most home gardens fail in winter because their entire crop inventory sits in the top 4 inches of soil. That is the war zone. That is where the frost penetrates first. Turkish Rocket bypasses the war zone entirely. It drops a thick, woody taproot up to 3 feet into the deep subsoil, mining minerals from well below the frost line and pumping a continuous stream of broccoli-like florets and leaves through the darkest months of the year. I remember standing in the garden on a bitter January evening. Dark, wind cutting through the jacket. Everything else in the bed's completely black and slimy. Dead annuals. And there, right at the edge of the fence, the deep green rosettes of Turkish Rocket were completely undisturbed by the ice. It felt disconnected from the season, like it hadn't received the memo that winter had arrived. It tastes sharp, peppery, and alive when everything else tastes like water. It grows in poor soil. It tolerates partial shade. It seeds itself freely once established, which means after year one you are managing an expanding colony of winter food rather than starting from scratch. This is the plant that erased a century of advice that said winter gardening is hard. Plant 3. Perennial sea kale. Before the commercial seed industry homogenized our diet around crops that require constant chemical intervention, coastal communities relied on plants that grew out of pure gravel. Sea kale is a structural powerhouse that ancient farmers cultivated as a permanent winter defense. Most gardeners think you need rich, fluffy compost to grow dense winter greens. That advice is incomplete. Sea kale thrives in high salinity, low nutrient environments because its cellular walls are reinforced with protective sulfur compounds. Those compounds do two things. They make the plant completely unpalatable to winter pests, and they lower the freezing point of the leaf tissue itself. I can already see the comment someone is typing right now, but doesn't sea kale get incredibly bitter and woody in winter? I thought the same thing. But then I found a 19th century British agricultural journal that documented the process of winter blanching. You don't eat the raw, wind-whipped outer leaves. In late autumn, you drop a terracotta pot upside down over the crown. Inside that dark space, away from the frost, the plant pushes out pale pink tender shoots in the middle of January. Crisp, nutty, they taste like hazelnut-infused asparagus. Plant 4. Walking onion. Annual onions are a logistical headache. You start them from delicate sets, weed them all summer, pull them up, and pray they don't rot in the shed over winter. The walking onion rejects that entire sequence. Instead of producing seeds, this plant grows clusters of small bulbs at the top of its stalks. As the head gets heavy, it bends over, touches the soil, and roots itself 3 feet away. It walks across your garden. During a deep winter freeze, while commercial scallions turn to mush in grocery store crisper drawers, the root system of the walking onion remains completely active, pumping green shoots straight through snow cover. Quick check. On a scale of 1 to 10, how often do your winter setups fail because of unexpected frost dips? Drop your number in the comments right now. I want to see the geographical pattern of where the annual advice is failing hardest. The practical reality of this plant is difficult to overstate. It multiplies every year without any input from you. A single plant becomes a cluster becomes a colony. Within 3 seasons, you have more perennial onion production than you know what to do with, and it cost you nothing after the initial planting. Plant 5. Groundnut. Let's slow down here, because we're moving past simple greens into serious calorie density. This is the piece everything else was building toward. The groundnut, Apios americana, is a permanent nitrogen-fixing vine native to North American woodlands. Traditional indigenous agricultural practices didn't clear the forest to grow food. They integrated this vine into the existing ecosystem, letting it do multiple jobs simultaneously. Before I explain what it produces, let me explain what it does to your soil while it's doing it. Most people feed their crops with synthetic fertilizer, creating a chemical dependency that degrades the soil over time. The groundnut uses a process called biological nitrogen fixation. The plant recruits specialized bacteria to live inside nodules on its roots. The plant feeds the bacteria sugars. The bacteria convert atmospheric nitrogen into a clean, water-soluble form the plant and everything around it can use. Modern analogy: a house that installs a solar array and shares the excess electricity with everyone on the street for free. The whole grid becomes more stable. The groundnut doesn't deplete your soil during its winter growth phase, it enriches it. While you sleep through a January blizzard, this vine is quietly building strings of dense, potato-like tubers just 2 inches below the surface. They contain 3 times the protein of a standard potato. And you don't harvest the whole patch. You pull what you need for dinner, snap the larger tubers off the string, and bury the rest back in the cold mud. They keep growing as if nothing happened. Plant 6. Siberian Peashrub. Most winter gardening strategies completely ignore the vertical dimension. We stare at the ground looking for low-growing roots while the real cold-weather infrastructure sits 6 feet above our heads. The Siberian peashrub is a perennial legume that treats a sub-zero winter like a mild inconvenience. It handles temperature drops down to -38 degrees without windbreaks, without rich loam, growing in sand, in compacted gravel, in barren clay where annual crops die within 48 hours. The seeds inside its pods are up to 36% protein. The modern gardening industry avoids this plant because you can't harvest it with a combine harvester. It requires human scale. It requires someone willing to interact with a permanent landscape rather than a row crop. Every square foot of permanent perennial production you establish is one less square foot of dependence on a supply chain that has already shown you, more than once, what happens when it fails. I don't know where you're watching this. Maybe it's late, maybe you're supposed to be doing something else right now, but if you've made it this far, I think you already know that the official narrative about what's possible in a cold climate is broken. Plant 7. Good King Henry. We have arrived at the most significant winter perennial in this list. Good King Henry was the backbone of European cottage gardens for 500 years before it was systematically replaced by commercial spinach varieties that required annual purchasing. Stop for a moment and think about what that sentence actually means. A crop that fed people through northern winters for half a millennium quietly dropped from the mainstream gardening conversation, not because something better replaced it, but because something more profitable did. Good King Henry produces edible shoots in early spring that can be eaten like asparagus. The leaves through most of the cool season, like spinach. The plant grows in poor soil. It tolerates cold that kills most salad crops. It requires essentially nothing once established, beyond keeping the area around it reasonably clear. And this is the watch-through reward I want you to carry out of this video. Every plant on this list is, to varying degrees, a dynamic accumulator. They pull minerals from deep in the soil profile that shallow-rooted annuals cannot access, and they deposit those minerals in their leaves. When you harvest and eat those leaves, you're getting a nutritional profile that commercial salad crops grown in depleted soil simply cannot match. When you compost what you don't eat, you cycle those minerals back into the surface layer where your annual crops benefit from them. These plants are not just feeding you, they are actively improving the soil system they live in, simultaneously. Once you understand that, the way you plan your entire growing space changes. You stop thinking about perennials as a bonus category. You start thinking about them as the permanent infrastructure your whole garden is built around. If you are still half listening while doing something else, put it down for a moment, because this next part is the reason the whole video exists. The gardening industry wants you thinking in seasons. Seed in spring, harvest in summer, empty beds in winter, back to the catalogue in January. That cycle is not natural. It is commercial. It was constructed to keep you purchasing. Breaking out of it does not require a large garden. It does not require expertise. It requires planting the right things once, and then mostly leaving them alone. Here is what I want you to do this week. Actually, this week. Identify one empty corner of your garden or one container you are not currently using and order seed or a starter plant for either sorrel or Good King Henry. Both establish easily. Both will give you a return this winter or next, depending on where you are in the season right now. That one action changes what your winter garden is. Save this video. The next time you are staring at empty beds in November and reaching for the seed catalogue, come back and pick one plant from this list to establish permanently instead. Now, there is one more thing, and I want to be honest that I haven't fully resolved it yet, which is unusual for me. Beneath centuries-old perennial beds, there are fungal networks operating at a scale and complexity we are only beginning to document. How those networks communicate structural nutrient information across differing microclimates during an extreme deep freeze, and what that means for the cold hardiness of the plants above them, is something the research is still catching up to. I've been sitting with this question for months. I don't have a clean answer. I'm not going to pretend I do. But that investigation is where we're going next. Because if the soil food web beneath a mature perennial bed is doing what early findings suggest it's doing, the implications for how we design winter food systems are significant enough to deserve their own video. Subscribe if you want to be there when that one lands. This channel doesn't stop at the method. We go after the mechanism. Which of these 7 are you planting first? And which one do you think will survive the hardest winter in your growing zone? Drop it below. The answers shape what I investigate next.